Hello and what's up, RBY Pokemon Challenges fam? How you guys doing? We're back. More minimum battles, but we're back on some shenanigans because just like the Chansey run that I did a couple videos ago, we've got Snorlax here who also can't beat Brock on minimum battles. So we are going to be testing out some ways to get this Pokemon through. There are a lot of Pokemon that are considered top tier in this generation that simply can't beat Brock on minimum battles. It's actually impossible. And Snorlax is one of those. In spite of the fact that it ranks 22nd total base stats out of 151 Pokemon, with a 430 base stat total with a massive 110 attack and 160 HP, it just doesn't have speed and it doesn't have defense, so it just doesn't have a way to get through. Add on that it's in the slow level up group, it's really terrible in that first gym battle. Outside of that, I think this Pokemon would completely crush though, because we get access to one of the best move pools in the entire game. I mean, we start with Headbutt, Amnesia, and Rest. We're going to learn Body Slam via level up, Hyper Beam via level up, Harden, so we can boost our defense later in the game. And then when you look at our TM and HM learn set, I mean, we've got things like Surf, of course, we've got things like Ice Beam, Blizzard, we can learn Thunderbolt, Earthquake. I mean, what is there not to like about this Pokemon? It's completely just the fact that it can't beat Brock. So we're going to see if we can get it through by using the Brock skip. But first, we may as well just do a quick run here where we demonstrate what the actual issue with this Pokemon is. So we're going to start off with Porlax, the Snorlax that's going to try to play the game as it normally would be played and is going to get completely wrecked. So here we are just going to pick him up very quickly, and of course our rival GSC Pokemon Challenges is going to pick up a Charmander. We're just going to come in here and completely destroy this one because of course he can't stand up to a critical hit headbutt there. But you'll notice that this Pokemon did not level up in that fight. Because it's in the slow level up group, it will not level up until we defeat the bug catcher in Viridian Forest, which means it will go into the Brock fight only at level 6. This is in contrast to Pokemon in faster level up groups that can get to the Brock fight at level 7 in this version of the game. Still, it's much worse than in Pokemon Yellow, where some Pokemon can even reach Brock at level 8, getting their first damage rounding threshold before they take on the first gym. And then when you add on the fact that Brock's Pokemon are 2 levels higher in this version of the game, the Geodude can use Defense Curl, raising its defense, meaning that our Headbutt will probably get down to doing only 1 damage per hit at some point. This one is basically guaranteed to be impossible. Now, of course, we can make very quick work of this Weedle in Viridian Forest since it's just a 2-hit KO. We get to level 6. But now it's time to take on Brock and see just how bad this fight actually is. So against Brock's level 12 Geodude, you'll notice it's 6 levels higher than us, double our level. But more importantly, we have only 12 defense here versus its 26 attack. So when we use our Headbutt here, we did 2 damage at this point after he uses a Defense Curl. The next Headbutt only did 1 damage after a second Defense Curl, and he did 9 damage with a single hit of Tackle. Now don't get me wrong, he could miss Tackle an infinite number of times, or he could just use Defense Curl over and over and over again, but you'll notice that we only have 15 PP in our move Headbutt. And while we can heal up by using Rest, we can see that we're taking massive amounts of damage here. So this is basically impossible because we're never going to deal enough damage to get through this fight. And the fact that Brock's Pokemon are 2 levels higher in this version of the game makes it even more impossible because of the fact that we're simply not going to be able to deal enough damage. And if we ever wanted to get to struggle, we would have to use up all of the PP in Amnesia as well as the Headbutt PP and our Rest PP. And then we still would have to get through the Onix. So this fight is impossible for all practical purposes, which is why we are going to restart this run and do the Brock skip. So here we come back with our brand new Snorlax named Skiplax, and we're going to fight the rival the same as before. There's no change in this section of the game, obviously. We simply spam Headbutt. He can growl at us all he wants, we're still going to win eventually and take that opponent down. But now is where we're going to basically deviate. We still have to fight the one bug catcher in Viridian Forest, which we know is an absolute cakewalk, but then we need to get access to a move that will actually allow us to beat Brock. And the solution is simple, obviously. We saw it in the Chansey run. We just need to get to Mount Moon and get access to the move Water Gun. Now, one thing that was noted by some people in the last video was that there is a difference between a Brock skip and using Brock through walls. If you simply use a Brock skip, all that really requires is just a frame perfect pause in order to pause and save the game as the guy who's trying to lead you to Brock's gym is trying to talk to you. And that one's technically pretty easy to set up and doesn't require a trade. The issue with that is that then you have to fight the first bug catcher after Brock. So that's what I did initially with the Chansey last time, and we found that it simply didn't work. However, Snorlax has a much better attack stats. So this could be a situation where we actually can beat the first couple trainers after we get past Brock in this section. So that's what I'm going to try first, and then if that doesn't work, then we will restart and do the actual Brock through walls, where we will make our way directly to Mount Moon in order to get access to Water Gun. Now, of course, once again, I'm simply using my overlay to do this, but we're simply going to skip that guy, and let's start more legit. Let's fight this bug catcher in Youngster Shorty and see if we can beat them with our Snorlax. So here, of course, our Snorlax is still level 6 up against a level 10 Caterpie, but I expect our Headbutt to do a lot of damage here. And of course, if we get into serious trouble, we could always simply use the move Rest in order to recover some HP, or even to recover this poison status that we have on right now. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm simply going to rest off the poison status, and I think we can get through this just fine. And here, of course, our Headbutt is like a 3-hit KO on the Caterpies, so we easily get through that fight. So now it's time to try Youngster Shorty, and let's see how he goes in this. So here, Headbutt 2-shots the Rattata. He's going to send out his Ekans next, of course, but we're doing more than enough damage here that we get through the Youngster Shorty fight on the first attempt. And so this is the real difference. Of course, Chansey just didn't have a physical attack stat or a defense stat to speak of, so it just couldn't deal enough damage. But a Pokemon like Snorlax is basically perfectly fine here. Of course, if we have enough PP. So with one reset simply due to running out of PP, that's, I still think, perfectly fine. And these fights are all perfectly winnable. And so just like that, we are able to make our way all the way to Mount Moon, where we can simply pick up TM12 for Water Gun and teach it to our Skiplax. And now with Water Gun in hand, I think we can simply go back to Brock's gym, and I think we're going to destroy him this time. We might need an Amnesia, I'm not sure, but it should be just fine here. So let's try Brock in this one and see if we beat him now on our first attempt at level 10. So here against Brock, I'm simply going to use Water Gun, and it does not quite one-shot, so I'll set up one Amnesia just because I want to make sure that I also am able to knock out the Onix pretty quickly. We get to a level 11 right there, and here Water Gun completely destroys Brock's ace. So just like that, we go from completely impossible to beat Brock to beating Brock fairly easily. And the big difference between this one and Chansey is that we didn't have to skip a bunch of trainers in order to go straight to Mount Moon. Instead, we could fight all the trainers in order and get to the Water Gun TM, and then just come back and immediately beat Brock. 7 minutes and 3 seconds to get through it. Really not too bad, with one reset due to poor routing and, of course, one TM. But with that, we're now able to basically progress in the game as normal on minimum battles. We aren't going to take any optional battles from this point, and I don't really even think we need to. Amnesia should make us very survivable against both Misty and against Lieutenant Surge, and the fact that we have a same type attack bonus and normal type moves kind of makes this Pokemon OP. In fact, I'm going to skip the Mega Punch TM because I simply don't think I need it. I think Headbutt is more than strong enough for this point in the game, and is more reliable than we would have with Mega Punch. Now, of course, our low defense is a little bit worrying, but it's obviously not that low, 65 base defense. So we should be able to survive fairly well against a lot of these opponents. And realistically, we can simply use some amnesias. Now, we got water gun disabled in this one, so we can't use it. But the best strategy is probably to use amnesia and then simply go into water gun to easily get through a lot of these opponents. And just like that, the super nerd goes down, we can get the dome fossil, and we have made our way through this section of the game with basically no challenges. And now in Cerulean City, I actually think the best strategy is to come straight to Misty's gym. Obviously, Amnesia will allow us to reduce the damage from Misty's water type moves, and that may be all we need to get our second gym badge. So let's try our first attempt at the water type gym leader and see if we can take her down. So as Misty sends out her Staryu, I'm going to lead off, of course, with 3 Amnesias, with the entire idea being to simply build up our resistance to her water type moves, and even with a single X defend, we're still doing massive damage with our headbutts here. Now against Starmie, we got a critical hit, so we got knocked out, but we basically just wanted to rest up damage and hopefully be able to get through from there. Let's try round 2. So this time we get an even better range on the first Staryu. She still critical hits us with her Starmie. We're going to rest off damage here, and we don't even mind the speed drop. And now Headbutt does massive damage, so we easily win on the second attempt and get to level 15. So 12 minutes, 51 seconds to get through that section. We've had 3 resets so far. Basically, 2 of those came due to routing issues. 1, I accidentally knocked out a wild Pokemon while I was trying to catch it. And yeah, we have 1 TM, but this is overall a very smooth run at this point. And now we have access to Bubble Beam, an even better water type move if we want to learn it. I'm not sure if we need it or not, but we may as well simply throw it on this one just so that we have access to a stronger move to use with Amnesia in this next section of the game. So I'm simply going to forget Water Gun and learn Bubble Beam. I think this is the best strategy. Obviously, there are some rock types coming up that we might want to be able to use this move against. So with that, let's take on rival number 2. Now, of course, this Pidgeotto can be a real pain, especially if it goes for a bunch of sand attacks, but I'm still going to set up the Amnesias here first. Basically with the idea being that we can get a Bubble Beam that's really strong, and now against Abra, we don't really have to care. We can simply rest and heal up all of the damage, and a single headbutt knocks that Pokemon out. And now Rattata doesn't have great specials, so Bubble Beam one-shots it, and of course Bubble Beam destroys the Charmander. So it's a very, very easy win once we manage to get to that point. And now we can simply make our way across Nugget Bridge, where I think Headbutt is basically strong enough for everything. And in fact, we're basically one-shotting or two-shotting all of these Pokemon just due to the fact that Snorlax has that massive attack stat. And as we make our way to the Oddish Lass, we've just completely crushed this entire section because Snorlax is just way too OP for all of these Pokemon. Even as a slow level up Pokemon, we're all the way up to level 19 at this point and really not struggling at all. So we'll save Billy Boy from whatever he's been doing on the weekends. And of course, he's going to just give us a ticket to go to a party because he wants to go back in that cell separator and do something more exciting. So let's just make our way down to rival number 3, where I think we have yet again a pretty easy victory in hand. Let's see if it actually works. Now, of course, you could get Body Slam in a normal run right here on the SSN, but of course we're going to skip it since it's behind an optional trainer. So we come straight to rival 3, and here he's going to lead off with his Pidgeotto, the same as before. Once again, I'm simply going to set up some Amnesias here because I think this is the best strategy. And then we can simply Bubble Beam if we want to. Now he has used some sand attacks on us, which is not ideal. I think we should rest. So now we can go for a Bubble Beam on Raticate. We're obviously going to Headbutt here against the Kadabra. That's a one-hit KO. And now Bubble Beam on the Charmeleon is a one-hit KO. So it's all just an easy victory there as we get to level 22. So we can come and talk to the captain and of course get the HM for cut, which we'll immediately teach to our Paris. And I'm going to go straight to Lieutenant Surge. Obviously beating him gives us access to Thunderbolt, another move that we might want later on in the game. Not sure if we're going to want it anytime soon though. Really, Thunderbolt could be useful against some opponents. Of course, Gyarados could be useful against the rivals Pidgeot, for example. But I'm not sure we actually want that move. We might want something more like Ice Beam in those cases. Really, Thunderbolt I think is going to come into play when we get to Lorelei in the late game. So after digging through the trash, because we all know that Lieutenant Surge is pretty trash in this version, let's go ahead and take him on for the first time. So of course, Lieutenant Surge in this version of the game uses a lot more special moves. In fact, he only has special moves with his Raichu rather than having Mega Punch and Mega Kick like he does in Pokemon Yellow. So I definitely want to set up the Amnesia just as a defensive resource. And here, I think this is a good spot to rest against the Pikachu. I mean, it's not really going to do that much damage to us, I don't think. Obviously, Growl kind of sucks, but we can still one-shot it with a Headbutt. And now against the Raichu, sure, Thunderbolt will do something. It paralyzed us, but we've got such high special, doesn't matter. We easily win on the first attempt, 21 minutes and 46 seconds in, with a score of 97.7. We've learned 2 TMs, 3 resets, really no issues up to this point in the game. So with that being done, we can make our way now to the rock tunnel, where I think our combination currently of Headbutt and Bubble Beam is actually more than enough to get us through that section. But let's test out first the Wrapping Lass. Of course, she loves to use status and she's probably faster than us, but let's just see if we can make this work. So she can wrap us with the Bellsprouts, but one Headbutt is enough to knock out all of these Pokemon as long as it connects. So that was easy, and we can simply move on to the rock tunnel itself. And of course, in spite of the fact that it's called the rock tunnel, there's only one hiker with rock types that you actually have to fight here, the self-destruct hiker. Let's see how we do. Obviously, Bubble Beam, 4 times super effective, and we're out leveling him at this point. Even with a 65 base special, it really doesn't matter. We easily win that fight. And with that, it's basically just guaranteed that we're getting through this with no resets, no difficulties whatsoever. So let's make our way straight to Celadon City. And of course, since we've already beaten Lieutenant Surge, we can come straight over here to get access to HM2 for Fly, which we're going to teach to our Pidgey that we caught earlier. I always found it funny that Pidgey is flying with a human being and, in theory, this Snorlax also tagging along. I wonder if Pokeballs actually eliminate the weight of the Pokemon. I suppose it would have to be that, otherwise you would never be able to walk around with a Snorlax anyway. So here we'll simply talk to the little girl and get access to Ice Beam and Rock Slide, just in case we ever need it. Rock Slide, of course, could be useful here since it will be 4 times super effective against the rivals Charizard and take advantage of our higher physical attack stat. That being said, of course, if we set up a bunch of Amnesias, we probably would prefer to use a move like Ice Beam against him. But with all that being said, we can simply make our way first into the Rocket Game Corner, where I think we've got some easy wins against these Rocket Grunts. I'm not going to change my moveset at this point. Let's just see how it goes. So making it to the basement, we can take on the 2 required Grunts down here. I don't see any way that they're actually going to pose a major problem for us, especially since we have Bubble Beam for the Sandshrew and Sandslash down here. That being said, moves like Bite do an awful lot of damage because we have fairly low defense. Still, with the Amnesia setup, we're doing massive damage, so we easily get through those fights. And I'm simply going to use a single Ether on Headbutt, and let's make our way into the Giovanni 1 fight. So here I think the best thing to do is start setting up Amnesia, because Onyx is just using Rage, which basically means nothing to us. Now we can just rest off some damage since it's only doing 3 damage per hit, and now Bubble Beam will 1-hit KO it. Same here for the Rhyhorn, which we even out speed. We get to level 28, and now we guard specs on Kangaskhan, and this is a 2-hit KO with Bubble Beam. Easy victory, never in question. And now I think it's time to at least take one shot at Erica herself before we move on too far. Obviously, she's very easy to forget in these runs, so we should just get it out of the way now. I also think that Rival 4 has some potential to be a little bit hard. Keep in mind that Gyarados does know Dragon Rage, which is why I typically go up against either the Venusaur team or the Charizard team in these runs, is because I actually find the Gyarados to be super OP in the middle game. So instead, let's take our first shot against Erica. I'm gonna give a quick heal just in case, and we can even slap on the move Ice Beam, which I do think is overall an upgrade on the move that we've been using so far in Bubble Beam. So let's just see if this is enough. So Erica attempt number 1, I'm going to obviously set up Amnesia first. We want to get our special stat as high as possible. Now, of course, a critical hit Razor Leaf will do massive damage, as will getting wrapped while we're poisoned. So we're actually going to lose that first attempt. Let's try this again. Now, the big issue that we have here is that this Victory Bell knows the move Razor Leaf, which is basically a guaranteed critical hit in the hands of a Victory Bell. And it can put us to sleep or poison us. So between the statuses, the wraps, and everything else, we can actually be knocked out pretty easily here. This time it goes Poison Powder though, and we still did not deal enough damage, so we'd need multiple Amnesias set up here to have any shot whatsoever. So I'm actually going to give up on the Erica fight right now, because we simply don't have a high enough special stat to actually make that one go, and we're just too slow against her wrapping Pokemon. So instead, let's make our way into the Lavender Tower and fight against rival number 4. So here once again, we're going to set up all the Amnesias, and now let's go for the Ice Beam here on the Pidgeotto. It's a one-hit KO. We're going to also Ice Beam on this Execute if we can manage to land a hit, and that is a one-hit KO as well. Now Gyarados, of course, we could go either way. We don't really like that critical hit with its Hydro Pump there, so we'll use Rest in order to heal up. And now the problem is that we're simply not landing any hits. But once we do land an Ice Beam, that is a one-hitter. Let's go for another Rest here against this Kadabra, and it's spamming some teleports. So if we can just land a Headbutt, I think we're going to one-shot this Pokemon, and we do. Out comes the Charmeleon. We will stick with the Headbutt here. He growls, but 2 Headbutts does the job. And just like that, we managed to get through rival number 4 without too much difficulty. So now we're going to take on these Channelers, and obviously we can't use our strong physical moves against them because they are normal type, so instead we're going to have to spam the Amnesias here and just hope that we can knock them out with some Ice Beams. And with 3 Amnesias set up, Ice Beam is one-shotting these Ghastlies, so we do get through and get to level 30, the same level that you would normally actually be able to catch a wild Snorlax at. So from here on out, everything that we do is basically as if you had just caught Snorlax where you would normally get it in the game. You could teach it TM moves, of course, and then see how it goes as you progress through the challenge. So it's Ghost Marowak time, and we're of course going to use an Amnesia here, and then let's go for an Ice Beam, and we get a very easy victory. So let's just mop up some rockets and get our way out of this section of the game. And with no difficulties whatsoever, we save Mr. Fuji, and he's going to reward us with a flute. Now, of course, it makes sense when you know how the game progresses, but as a kid, I always wondered, why the heck did this old man give me a flute here? But with that done, I'm actually going to make my way down to Koga at this point. And this is a spot where I think we're still a couple levels away from learning the move Body Slam. And it kind of makes sense to come over here and get access to the Psychic TM. Basically, I think when we get to Koga himself, what we do is we forget the move Headbutt in exchange for the move Psychic, and then use Psychic in order to completely destroy his poison type Pokemon after setting up a little bit with Amnesia. But let's just see how it actually goes as we get into this gym. Now, fortunately for these jugglers, we can simply spam the move Headbutt, and these should be very, very easy victories. So here we reach Koga at level 32, still 3 levels away from learning Body Slam, but I'm going to move forward with my strategy, which is to teach the move Psychic right here. over headbutt, and we're just going to use a bunch of amnesias and see if this works out. So here in round 1, I'm simply going to start off by setting up a whole bunch of amnesias at the start of the battle. He does get a smokescreen on me, but let's just see what Psychic does. That is a one-hit KO on the first coughing. Here we get poisoned by this muck after he uses sludge. I'm going to rest here. Yes, I know he's going to spam some minimize, but all we need is to simply land a hit, I think, and we will be good. So there we do one-shot the muck. Coughing comes out, we go for Psychic, easy win there. Wheezing comes out, he X attacks, but a single Psychic knocks it out as we get to level 34. So just like that, we have managed to beat Koga with our Snorlax. In 42 minutes and 41 seconds, we're still in S tier territory at this point, and we're able to now progress in the game. So now the question is just how we want to proceed. Obviously, we want to get access to Body Slam at some point. So I think this is a perfectly reasonable spot to first go back and take on Erica again. Let's see if we can beat her at this point, because if we can gain just one more level, we should then be able to get access to Body Slam, which I think is the move that we'll want to use for the Sabrina fight that's coming up. So back again against Erica, now at level 34. I'm going to spam my amnesia here. We get poisoned and wrapped by Victory Bell, which is obviously not ideal, but here we have managed to set up all of our amnesia, and now I'm going to go for the Ice Beam, and we get the one-hitter. Keep in mind that we're also getting a badge boost in speed at this point. I'm going to rest here against the Tangela since it really can't do anything. It only knows Constrict and Bind in Pokemon Red and Blue. It was pretty terrible, honestly. So now once we wake up, we can simply try to use Ice Beam and get the one-hit KO. Out comes the Vileplume, it goes Petal Dance, that does not matter, we easily win. 44 minutes and 18 seconds, we have 5 gym badges now with a score of 95, really not doing too bad. And as we can see, we're getting pretty close to getting access to Body Slam, so I think this is now time to simply go to Silphco and try to go take on the rival after we fight the one required trainer in this section. And we're coming into rival number 5 with just 99 XP left to get to level 35. So we'll level up just after the very first Pidgeot, which I think is perfectly fine here. So attempt number 1, I'm simply going to start off by setting up Amnesia against Pidgeot. We don't really mind its quick attacks that much. And now we can simply go for an Ice Beam and get an easy one-hit KO. We level up right here. I'm going to learn the move Body Slam over Psychic. I don't think I need it anymore. And now we can simply Ice Beam on the Execute. The Gyarados, we're going to give it the same treatment. It's going to be 2 Ice Beams here to knock that one out. Out comes his Alakazam. He disables Body Slam. Okay. So now I think we just have to rest and hope not to get too many critical hits until we get our disability to be gone. But in the meantime, I guess Ice Beam is the way to go. So it took quite a while, but we did get rid of the disability. Now we can use the Body Slam. And of course, against this Charizard, let's simply go for the Ice Beam, and we get an easy one-hit KO. So just like that, first attempt to beat the rival, it wasn't even difficult, and we'll pick up Lapras just to have another HM Pokemon. And of course, we don't have to worry quite as much about damage in these runs because we have Rest. So we can simply go into the next fight against this Cubone and just set up Rest here and basically be perfectly fine. So with that, let's make our attempt at Giovanni number 2. I don't expect him to be terribly hard here. Now I'm just going to set up some Amnesias since basically I expect Ice Beam to be our strongest move here, but we will Body Slam the Nidorino. I'm going to stick with the Body Slam here on this Kangaskhan. It got a critical hit and then a bite. Are you kidding me? So we do get knocked out. Probably should have used a rest there to heal up, but it is what it is. Still, we once again knock out that Nidorino. And here, as long as he doesn't get crazy luck against us, I think we can win against this Kangaskhan. And sure enough, we do. Now I'm going to rest against the Rhyhorn just to get all my HP back. And it really can't do that much to us. A single Ice Beam knocks it out. And now Nidoqueen Tail Whips, but Ice Beam does the job, so it was an easy victory in the second attempt. And with that, we can simply go upstairs and get access to Earthquake, as well as another rare candy, and now it's time to go to the Safari Zone and then make our way to Blaine. And after a very quick run through the Pokemon Mansion, it's time to just make our way into Blaine's gym. So let's just stay Tombstoner and make our way to the gym leader. Now, of course, I could learn a move like Earthquake here. I just don't think I really need it. I think we can just go with Body Slam and Ice Beam and actually make this one just fine. But let's find out. Blaine attempt 1. So of course, Blaine is going to lead off with his Growlithe. I'm simply going to sit here and spam some Amnesias, just so that we take less damage from fire type moves. Now Ponyta goes Stomp, doesn't really matter, we easily knock it out. We get Fire Spin from the Rapidash, but of course it's not going to do much damage with this move, unless it critical hits of course. However, the Stomp due to getting some Tail Whips did knock us out. Let's try a second attempt. So this time we get back to this Rapidash, but he's using some super potions on it. We do paralyze it though and knock it out. Out comes the Arcanine, it goes for a Fire Blast. Fortunately, we've set up tons of Amnesias here, and we paralyze it. I'm going to go for an Ice Beam since we've got so many Amnesias, and we get through on the second attempt. 55 minutes, 10 seconds to get through that gym. Really not doing too bad, and there was no need to use rare candies or to change our moveset in order to beat Blaine. Now I'm going to just go fight against Sabrina. We've got a badge boost in Special that will make us a little bit more survivable there. And then it's just Giovanni and on to the league. Now, of course, Sabrina should just be a matter of Amnesia and using Body Slam. Let's see if it works out, though. So Sabrina attempt number 1 here. Obviously, I'm going to lead off with all of the Amnesias. And she can even get special drops on us, which technically lets us get even more badge boosts. I'm going to take the opportunity to heal up here though. Now after we've gotten all those badge boosts in, we can simply Body Slam to one-shot there. Mr. Mime doesn't know any really strong moves. It only knows Confusion and Double Slap as damage dealing moves. So I'm going to take this opportunity to rest up again. Obviously we don't care about its light screen, and it's going to be a 2-hit KO with Body Slam. Out comes the Venomoth. We can simply paralyze it just like that. Very nice. And I figure we should rest off this poison if we can. Sure, it can use Psybeam, but that's an easy 2-hit KO. Out comes Alakazam. Psybeam doesn't really matter. He reflects next. Easy victory. So Sabrina had no chance. 56 minutes, 50 seconds to beat that gym. And 12 resets and 4 TMs so far. Really not doing too bad. Easily S tier up to this point in the game. All you needed was a Brock skip. And so now it's time to make our way to Giovanni, where we have access, of course, to Ice Beam. So I don't think this one's going to be terribly hard. That being said, I mean, he could outspeed us with things and just do a lot of damage. I don't think he has double kick on any of his Pokemon in this version. So we shouldn't actually have anything super effective against us. And that's probably the key. That being said, there is one wall here, which is this black belt. Obviously, black belts have access to the move low kick, which actually turned out to be enough to knock me out on the first attempt here. And then I realized I didn't save since Sabrina, so I had to refight those battles. But here we are back at this point, and we have beaten that black belt on the second attempt. So now it's just time to go take on Giovanni himself. Maybe his physical attacks are enough. Even with a high HP, the fact that we have fairly low defense, relatively speaking, could be an issue in this one, but let's find out. So here against Giovanni, I'm going to lead off with some Amnesias here, because obviously we want to be able to one-shot opponents if we can, and then we may as well just rest against the Rhyhorn since it's not super scary by any means. It does give us a Tail Whip, which is obviously another badge boost, so I think that's perfectly fine. I'm going to body slam here against the Doug Trio, and I'm going to rest against the Nidoqueen. Nidoqueen does know body slam, but it also knows poison, sting, and scratch, which aren't terribly scary moves. And I'm going to body slam this one down if I can, and we do in fact knock it out. So we could learn Harden here, but I'm actually going to avoid this move. I think our best strategy is just stick with the Amnesia as we go along, and rest is just too important to forget. So now we'll Ice Beam on the Nidoking, one-hit KO, and Ice Beam the Rhydon, also a one-hit KO. So we defeat Giovanni on the first attempt, 1 hour 56 seconds, and still basically no change. We just had the one reset there on that black belt, and we had to refight Sabrina. So our Sabrina split got a little bit worse. It went to 58-23. It's the way that my system works. This is why people always ask me, why do you always save, or sometimes even save twice? It's because I'm trying to avoid situations like that where I forget to save and then end up going all the way back to 3 fights before and having to lose some time. So you could theoretically knock about 2 minutes off of this time if you were actually doing everything proper and legit and saving between every single battle. But with that being said, it really wasn't that much of a time loss, and we are ready to go take on rival number 6. So rival 6 attempt number 1 here. Of course, he's going to lead off with the Pidgeot that no longer knows Sand Attack. So we're absolutely happy about this. We're going to set up all of the Amnesias right here and now go into the Ice Beam. That's an easy one-hit KO. Out next comes Rhyhorn, easy one-hitter. Execute, Leech Seeds us. That's kind of bad, but we do get the one-hit KO there. Ice Beam got a critical hit on the Gyarados. That's not what we wanted to see. But if we can manage to land the hits, we will get through that one. I'm going to rest here on the Alakazam in order to get health back since we are Leech Seeded. So now as we wake up, a Body Slam doesn't one-shot, but it's a 2-hit KO right there. And on the Charizard, I'm just going to go for Ice Beam and get the easy victory. And with that, we have made it to the league with our Snorlax on minimum battles. There are no required trainers inside of the Victory Road section. So we're going to take a quick detour to the power plant. I always lose a little bit of time doing it, but in minimum battles runs, getting access to one more rare candy sometimes is truly the difference between a successful and unsuccessful run. And because this is minimum battles, the second that we fight any of the Elite Four members and actually get through one of them, we can't go back. So a lot of people will say things like, oh, if you really want to challenge yourself, don't save between Elite Four members and fight them all in a row. I would argue that in a minimum battles run, at least, the bigger challenge is to always save between Elite Four members, because when you save between Elite Four members, you're actually locking yourself in and making it impossible to go back and change anything at that point. So if you've made a big strategy mistake, or if you've forgotten to pick up an important TM or important item, you would actually sabotage your run at that point because you can't gain extra experience. So if you've already beaten Lorelei, you are just basically up the creek without a paddle. I have done at least a half a dozen runs with exactly that situation just since I started this channel. And since what we're doing is not by any means an optimized speed run, but rather testing minimum battles, I think it's always perfectly fine to lose a little bit of time just to make sure that we have the items that we need. And just for good measure, I'm also going to get the Thunder TM. Maybe it's useful at some point in this section of the game, I'm not sure, but we're going to have it just in case. And just like that, we can go back to Victory Road. Let's just buy a bunch of full restores, and it's time to get into the league with this Snorlax. With no rare candies used up to this point, now I do think this is a spot where the best play is to add TM24 Thunderbolt in order to get through Lorelei. It could also be useful later on against Lance. So let's go ahead and learn this move. And the real question is, what do we replace? And honestly, since we're running an Amnesia set, I actually think Body Slam is the move to forget. Body Slam's not really going to be useful against Agatha. It's going to be resisted by Bruno's Onyx as well as Lance's Aerodactyl. So the only real place we would want a physical move would be against Alakazam on the champion, but I think we can get through without it. So I'm actually going to forget this move and learn Thunderbolt. Let's see if that's a mistake. but let's get into this. So first things first, we got to take on Lorelei. I'm going to set up my amnesias first. We don't care about Growl, obviously, since attack drops mean nothing to us here. We one-shot with a Thunderbolt after the amnesias. We one-shot the Cloyster. We one-shot the Slowbro. We're just going to stick with the Thunderbolt here on Jinx. It's looking to be a 2-hit KO. And finally, Lapras comes out. It goes for Hydro Pump. That does not matter. And it goes for Blizzard. We just barely had to survive on a sliver after the first Thunderbolt, but 2 Thunderbolts was more than enough, and we get through without any rare candies on Lorelei. So now just a quick heal, and it's time to take on Bruno. Do we have to talk about Bruno? Let's find out. So I think I'm just going to stick with the same strategy of setting up all of my amnesias right away. And then here, let's just go for an Ice Beam. And Ice Beam? Oh, and the jump kick. Oh my god, that did so much damage. But we froze the Hitmonlee. So that basically guarantees we're taking this Pokemon down. We can rest to recover health here. Just give it a Thunderbolt, I guess. Now, Onyx goes for Rock Throw. We give it an Ice Beam. And Machamp, as long as it doesn't submission, he goes X Defend. Easy victory. Oh, Bruno. Even when Bruno should have defeated us. Nobody talks about Bruno. Come on. So now I'm just going to stick with this moveset. We could obviously learn Earthquake, which would be pretty good against Agatha. But let's just try with these moves. If we don't have to learn a new TM, let's avoid it. Agatha, attempt number 1. So here's another one where absolutely we have to set up the amnesia first. We really don't like getting confused because of the fact that basically that means she could wreck us from here. Now, of course, Golbat, we don't want it to use Haze. We easily knock it out, fortunately, after the amnesias. And here this Gengar appears to be a 2-hit KO, easy victory. Now we snap out of confusion. Haunter is also a 2-hit KO. Arbok comes out. It paralyzes us. I'm going to rest here in order to heal the paralysis. We get some bites. I don't think they're going to matter though. She switches to the final Gengar, which is a 2-hit KO, and one more hit on the Arbok. Ooh, it survives on a sliver, but we get it. And just like that, we get to level 47. No rare candies used. We have beaten Agatha. So just like that, we're to Lance. Let's see if we get him. So Lance attempt number 1, obviously we're going for Amnesia right away. We get a Hyper Beam from this Gyarados. That was kind of scary, but now we can Thunderbolt this Pokemon and knock it out. I'm going to rest here against this first Dragonair. Obviously these Dragonairs can also use Hyper Beam, but that will give us a turn to wake up. Ice Beam did not one-shot there. Keep in mind, we are at a much lower level, but we do manage to get through there. Now the Hyper Beam from the Aerodactyl nearly knocks us out. We level up and could learn Double Edge. We're not going to learn Double Edge here. And we get slammed from the Dragonite. If we had gotten Barrier or Agility, we obviously would have won in that run. Let's try this one again. So second attempt, we get a Leer. That is actually really bad from this Gyarados, because that means that in theory we're going to take much more damage from those Hyper Beams. Here we get Dragon Age from the first Dragonair, but then the Hyper Beam knocks us out. So we really do not want to get that Leer from the first Gyarados. So the issue here seems to be that we're just not surviving against those Hyper Beams. Fortunately, we have tons of rare candies in the bag, so we can simply level up here. So I'm going to get to level 50 first. That's 3 rare candies used. Let's see if that's enough to get through this fight now. Now, of course, the issue here is that we're not getting faster than the Dragonairs with badge boosts. So that failed 3 more rare candies. Let's see if it works now. So we're still slower than the Dragonairs at level 53, even after some badge boosts. But we get agility this time from that Dragonair. Bite from the Aerodactyl, but we knock it out. And then a slam from the Dragonite. Every time we get to the Dragonite, we basically have a 50-50 shot of winning. So here at level 55, we are at least able to survive a couple of Hyper Beams from the Dragonairs. And now we can heal up and use Ice Beam. Out comes this Aerodactyl. It goes for Supersonic this time. So we get a knock it out. We have green health to the final Dragonite, and it uses agility. So we win and get to level 56. We could learn Hyper Beam here. I'm not going to learn Hyper Beam here. We have defeated Lance in an hour 17 minutes, about an hour 18 minutes after you round. So still S tier. No change to our moveset. We still have some rare candies in the bag, 3 more left to go, and let's see if this turns out to be enough against the champion. So the champion leads off with his Pidgeot. I'm just going to use this opportunity to set up my Amnesias. He went Whirlwind, and he went for a Sky Attack and a Wing Attack. I'm just going to heal up some damage here. Obviously, he can use Whirlwind, which doesn't really scare us all that much. I'm going to use Thunderbolt here in order to knock this one out. I'm going to stick with the Thunderbolt on the Alakazam. It's going to be a 2-hit KO. He uses Recover. It doesn't matter. Ice Beam destroys the Rhydon, obviously. Exeggutor can get an Ice Beam. We can give a Thunderbolt to the Gyarados. And finally, out comes the Charizard. We did just level up. It goes for a Fire Spin here. Not what we wanted to see, but he misses the next Fire Spin. Thunderbolt does the job. And just like that, an hour, 19 minutes, 35 seconds to get through the entire game with a Snorlax on minimum battles. We didn't use any rare candies until Lance, and we didn't change our moveset after Lorelei. So just like that, 22 resets to beat the game. Keeping in mind, this is a first attempt, so we could probably eliminate a bunch of resets by knowing better where to use rare candies since we had 3 left over in the bag. We obviously could have gotten better ranges in certain spots. And yeah, the 5 TMs I think we used were pretty logical to use at the time that we added them. And just like that, Snorlax joins the tier list and definitely outperformed against Chansey. Just way better than Chansey because of the fact that it's actually a really strong Pokemon. And keep in mind, it finished the game 8 levels lower than Chansey and still managed to beat the game on minimum battles. It's sitting right in line with the same level of Articuno and 1 level lower than Cloyster that was also able to beat the game on minimum battles. And it was also faster than our Chansey run that we did previously, due to the fact that, generally speaking, while yes, there are some fights that are tedious because we're using a lot of rests, we have much better damage output than the Chansey throughout a lot of the run. So with that, let's just add our Snorlax to the Hall of Fame. Skiplax has done it. Now the question is, could we beat the game with even fewer battles? Possibly, but everything will rely on that Brock skip. And since Snorlax can do this, it makes me think about a lot of other OU Pokemon in Generation 1. Pokemon like Zapdos, Pokemon like Tauros also cannot beat Brock on minimum battles. So it kind of raises the question, if we simply skip the Brock fight, get to Mount Moon, gain some extra levels, something, are those Pokemon able to then come back and beat the game on minimum battles? I think Tauros is a really good candidate to try since it, just like Snorlax, has a really wide move pool. And in theory, if Tauros ran into serious trouble in the late game, it could even use 1-hit KO moves like Fissure and Horn Drill in order to try to get through really tough opponents. So I'd love to hear your predictions. Do you guys think that we could beat the game on minimum battles with a Tauros using this same sort of setup? Let me know in the comments. And with that, let's just take our Snorlax and come over here and beat up on Mewtwo. So Mewtwo attempt number 1, I'm going to set up my Amnesias here first. We didn't even heal after the champion, so I'm going to use a rest here. Obviously, Amnesia makes us far more survivable against the Psychics from this Mewtwo. It's setting up a bunch of barriers, which we don't really like, but I think we can still get this to go with our Ice Beam. It's looking to be a 3-hit KO here if he doesn't recover. Of course, he's going to recover, but we're surviving just fine against his moves, and we defeat Mewtwo on the first attempt. At level 57, we beat a level 70 Mewtwo. So very nice. Snorlax, absolutely legendary. Hey, if you've gotten this far, guys, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate you. Consider joining the channel membership if you haven't already, because it's a great way to support me. And with that being said, thanks to the channel members. Just want to give a big shout out, of course, to Super Saiyajin Jared Rose, Super Saiyajin Derp, Mistral Psycho, and all the other members of the Pokemon Center tier and the Right On meme team. Thank you guys so much. See you in the next video. Later.